Book Yaps with Ash.
Hello and welcome to episode number 2 of Book Yaps with Ash. I'm Ash, and today's video is going to be about all the books I read in January. There's 5 of them, so let's get into it. Just going to go in order with what I finished first to what I finished most recently. And, you know, it was a new year. Typically, you like to start a new year with like some positivity and like optimism, you know, just joy even, and I didn't do that. So the first book I read this year and finished was Nuclear War by Annie Jacobsen, and it was not optimistic or uplifting or positive at all. So what this book is essentially it's a scenario of what could happen and how nuclear war could come to be and how it would unfold and what the result would be, which, spoiler alert, is not very good. And because of that, this is a very hard book for me to review because when you take away the actual content of it, the book was really well written. Having it be a scenario kind of playing out feels like you're kind of reading a fiction story, even though it could happen, which makes it really easy to understand. And how easy it is to understand just also makes you more anxious because really the gist of it is that nuclear war could happen anytime, just from, you know, minor miscommunication or need to assert one's masculine dominance. So yay about that. You could tell that this book was really well researched, and the author spoke to and about many experts in lots of different fields relating to war and nuclear war in general and the United States government. It overall was very, very detailed. The book was written in 5 parts, and it starts kind of before the nuclear war would happen. Gives kind of a history of the weapons, who has them, how many there are. I'm going to pull up this stat that I wrote down. At one point in the US, there were 31,255 nuclear weapons in the United States. And that's because they were making over 5 a day. And the reason they were making so many was not to use them, but so that other countries knew that if they bombed the US, that they would be destroyed back. So it was kind of this concept of like, well, if you do it, you're going to get destroyed. If we do it, we're going to get destroyed. So let's just all not do it. And I do get that, but also we could just not make them. So, yeah. But anyways, yeah, so essentially it was split up into 5 parts. The beginning, we talked about the history of nuclear weapons, how many there are, who has them, how they were kind of created and built. The next one is the first 24 minutes after a nuclear bomb is launched. The next 24 minutes, the 24 minutes after that, and then the next 24 months and beyond. So it goes, each chapter is minute based. It's what it could be happening at this very minute in the US, in North Korea, in Russia, and all of those countries that have the nuclear bombs and are having lots of fun throwing them around. It's a very detailed account of what could happen, and the end result is just, it's bad. So normally I'm hit or miss with non-fiction books in general, and I felt that this one was very easy to follow along with, to understand the concepts that they were talking about. It felt very straightforward. I listened to the audiobook and it was read by the author, and I actually found her voice to be like oddly calming, despite the topic just being horrible. So yeah, taking out the fact that everything she was saying is very realistic and we might be doomed as a society, I found this book to really be very good and gave it 5 stars. However, I don't know if I recommend it. I don't think I should have been reading it, and I don't think anybody with a shred of anxiety should read it. If you are curious, which is why I read it, I mean, go ahead, but it's not good. Okay, so now that we've got that sad one out of the way, the next one I finished was a sci-fi book by Becky Chambers called The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. This was my first Becky Chambers book. She's more known for A Psalm for the Wild-Built, the duology there, but this is a pretty popular, I guess, sci-fi. It's actually a series from about 10 years ago, and this one was actually kind of intimidating for me at first because it is very sci-fi fantasy. So this takes place in outer space. We're in this future universe where humans have left Earth, they have colonized Mars, and they are part of this kind of bigger universe collective of other aliens from other planets, and you can really travel across the galaxy in spaceships, and that is what we're doing. So we're following a crew on a spaceship whose job it is to essentially to deliver things from planet to planet, or to go and create these kind of black holes that will connect different parts of the universe to each other. And that's all they do. They just travel across space. And there are species from tons of planets, all of them made up, all of them that I don't remember the names of. And yeah, taking this step a bit further into sci-fi, a bit further into fantasy was intimidating for me. I was nervous that I wouldn't really be able to keep things straight, keep characters straight. You know, there's lots of defining physical features for each of the aliens, you could say. And I think that Becky Chambers did a really good job at kind of reminding you of these things, so that you didn't really feel like you were lost or that there was things that you should be remembering. Some people have said that this is like Space House in the Cerulean Sea. I would agree, sort of, just because it is found family, but you'll never be able to tell me that anything is House on the Cerulean Sea, because that book lives up here. That being said, this was a great book, a 5-star read. The only thing I didn't really like about it is that I felt like some things weren't totally concluded. You know, keeping in mind that this is, I think, book 1 of 4, I understand why some stories weren't concluded, but the ending kind of just felt a bit, I don't know if rushed is the word, but it just ended, I guess. Yeah. And it also has a good undertone of, you know, diversity, of politics, of understanding one another, and of how everybody's kind of going through something, everybody's got a struggle, and also of how people can live differently than us, and that doesn't make it wrong. So that is that book. Hydration break. Hopefully you've got a water with you or a drink of any kind. Today I'm drinking this Thai tea drink. It's very good. It's like really good, actually. Shout out TNT for having this. Next, and also finally, I read Misery by Stephen King. This is one that sits at a lot of people's best of Stephen King lists. It's very high up there. It's very popular, and it deserves it. So if you do not know, Misery is about an author, Paul Sheldon. Stephen King loves writing about authors. You write what you know. He wakes up in someone else's home. It turns out he had crashed his car in a snowstorm, and she is nursing him back to health because she's a nurse, but she's also his biggest fan, and her name's Annie Wilkes, and she's also almost universally considered Stephen King's scariest character. And God is she. So, Annie is taking care of Paul. He has written a series with a character called Misery, and she loves the Misery books. And he just put out a book where Misery dies at the end of it. And while she's taking care of him, while Annie's taking care of Paul, she reads that book, realizes that Misery dies, and kind of goes off the walls. It doesn't make her very happy, and when she's not happy, she does things that probably she shouldn't and things that a normal person wouldn't do. But she says, okay, Paul, you know, you're brought to me for a reason, and you're going to rewrite this story. You're going to write Misery Returns. You're going to bring her back. So she keeps Paul there as he writes the newest Misery story. And things get very, very messy. There's a lot of body horror, and there is a lot of Annie acting absolutely nuts. There's a lot of Paul trying to escape, and really the whole story happens in her house, which is crazy. I found the gore and the scary bits to be super unique. There is a scene, I'll just call it a thumb scene. Loved it. One of my favorite scenes written in a horror book. But again, if you don't like body horror, not for you. I did find the beginning of this book to be a bit slow. However, it took me about a week to get halfway through this book. It's not long. I think that was just a result of my energy levels at the time. So I think had I been reading it faster overall, it wouldn't have felt as slow. But it really did pick up in the end, and having like completely finished it, I don't feel like I would change the pacing in the beginning. I just really wanted things to start happening, I guess. So that was why I felt like that. I will also say that this book was written in 1987. So there are some stereotypes that that do not hold up. And are things that you probably wouldn't read about now in a book that was published, but you know, keep in mind that it's a billion years old, or however old you are if you're born in 1987. I don't know. Anyways, Misery by Stephen King, loved it, and will probably reread this one day. So after just the gruesomeness of Misery, I went with another Becky Chambers book, A Psalm for the Wild-Built, which, like I said, is the one that she is more known for. It's also more recent. Teeny tiny little cozy fantasy book. Fantastic. There's hype around this one, and it's warranted, for sure. So simply, this book is about a monk and a robot. So we're living in this future world where one day all of the robots working in factories just decided, we don't want to do this anymore. They got up and they left. And humans were like, cool. That's fair. So unrealistic. We would never as a species do that, but that'd be nice. So yeah, they just walked off and decided to be their own governing species, and humans gave them a portion of land and kept a portion of land for themselves and agreed to stop using any sort of electronic devices and went kind of back to just living off the land and fending for themselves. And so it starts with us meeting a monk, sibling Dex, non-binary cutie, and they're kind of going through a midlife crisis. They have changed vocations and they want to become a tea monk who essentially just rides around in a tea cart, and people will come to get tea from them, and they will talk about their problems. And so, you know, as a tea monk, you're supposed to make a tea that will help satisfy this person and make them feel better, but also be listening ears and offer some sort of comfort. So this is what Dex is trying to do, and they become very good at it. But eventually they decide they just want to climb this mountain and go to this, can't remember what the word is, but it's a religious retreat center to reflect. They start going on this journey, and a robot stumbles upon them. And humans and robots haven't, you know, been in contact with each other. And the robot's name is Splendid Speckled Mosscap, and the reason for that is that they name themselves after the first thing that they see amongst waking up. So that's the first thing that it saw. And the two of them end up traveling together to the top of this mountain, to the religious retreat, and getting to know one another and learning about each other's species. And it's just really them having conversations about their differences, the things that make them the same. And the overall theme of this is that you don't necessarily need to have a purpose in life, and you don't need to have it based on work specifically. And that is what Splendid Speckled Mosscap teaches Dex in the end. And I found this to be great. I found it to be lovely, and yeah, definitely recommend. You could probably finish it very quickly with it being so short. Easy read, and just makes you feel like it's a nice hug. Really enjoyed it. And there is a sequel to it, which I have put on hold at the library. So we'll see when that comes. Lastly, and I just finished this one last night, I read The Last House Guest by Megan Miranda. This has been on my TBR for a long time. I've had it for a few years now, and I finally read it doing my TBR book bingo, and
I didn't like it. I didn't.
So this is a thriller book. It's based in this Maine town that is a coastal town. So you have people coming and visiting as tourists in the summer, and you've got the people that live there that work there and kind of rent out the homes and do all the touristy stuff. So it's one of those Maine summer books that I feel like are kind of popular. It's a popular setting to have in it. And what happens is, so we're following the main character, Avery. Her best friend had died the previous summer. Everyone was convinced that Sadie, her friend, unalived herself, but Avery doesn't think that that's the case. So she's trying to figure out what exactly happened, why she died. The kind of dynamic between these two characters is that Avery grew up in this town and was just kind of part of the locals. And Sadie was from this family of the Lomans, who own a bunch of the vacation homes that you can rent out. They're also kind of colonizing this town, making it so that people who own the little bed and breakfasts are losing business, and they're just kind of monopolizing the touristy parts of the town. But these two become friends, I guess unlikely friends. And what I found to be very distracting in the first little bit of this book is that it was very queer coded. When you are hearing about them becoming friends, I was convinced that we were going to get to a point where oh, you realize Avery is in love with Sadie, and she died because of that, or something like that. And there was just quotes that really led me to believe this. So her fingers closed over mine as she reached for the bottle, and then I was grounded. Gay. Spoiler alert, that has nothing to do with the story at all. I don't know. I probably read into it. I often think that that two friends are just destined to become lovers, but then they don't. But I don't know. That sentence felt really gay, and there was more of them. Anyways, I found that bit to be very distracting. I was like, is it gay, is it not? And I spent the first about a third of the book trying to figure it out. And then it wasn't. Anyways, the dynamic is that, rich girl and poor girl friend, I guess. At one point, while they were friends, Sadie kind of got Avery a job working for the family, so she managed all of the rental properties and was able to live basically for free in one of the guest homes, hence the term the last house guest, I guess. And so she was part of the family, which was weird for all the townspeople because she's from, the group of locals, and the Lomans are not them. So there's that weird power dynamic. And yeah, the book is basically Avery trying to figure out why Sadie died. Sadie knew some stuff. Avery's trying to figure out what it was. And then you find out, and the book here says, dizzying plot twists. I don't know if I've just read a lot of thrillers at this point, and a lot of top tier thrillers, but I found there to not really be a twist. I feel like there was a conclusion. I feel like we found out, but I don't really feel like there was a twist. I read, what happened, and I just kind of went, oh yeah, that makes sense. Cool. And yeah, that's what made me just not really love this. I didn't feel super invested in the story. I was curious. I wanted to know what happened, which is why I kept reading and finished it. But yeah, there was not really the suspense, the page-turnishness of a thriller just wasn't there for me. Didn't really care about any of the characters, didn't find them very likable, and there was also just some stuff that didn't fit into the plot. There was a bit about Avery and Sadie getting tattoos one year when they were friends that were supposed to be broken infinity symbols because nothing ever lasts, or something dark like that. And then it turns out that it actually was an S, and it looked like Avery had just got an S for Sadie. And that was never really addressed, of why there was that weird relationship between the two of them. And so yeah, it just felt like there were some things that didn't really make sense. I feel like it was a bit unfocused. I didn't know what I was supposed to be paying attention to. However, all that negativity aside, I really enjoyed Megan Miranda's writing. I found that the way that she described things and feelings was very interesting and unique. So I really liked her prose. I just think the plot and the characters is where this book fell short. So would I recommend it? If you have it and want to read a thriller, sure, I guess. But if this concept of like, you know, beach town, figuring out who killed the girl, kind of summery thriller story sounds good to you, then I would suggest any of these books instead. And then once you've read all those, if you've run out of all other books, sure, give this one a go. Have a go at it. But I don't know. Wasn't for me. Might give another one of her books a chance because who knows? Maybe I'll like it more. There was a lot of mixed reviews on this one. Some people really loved it and some people felt the same way I did. So I don't know. Not sure if maybe it was me. Maybe it's not you. Maybe it's me. But flop for me. But the rest were good. So I think those are pretty good odds. Well, that's it for January. Looking forward to reading some good stuff in February, hopefully. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and comment and subscribe. But you don't have to. Like, it's your life. Say goodbye to Monkey. Bye, Monkey. She doesn't want to talk. Goodbye.